In recent days, the name 3I Atlas has suddenly become the center of attention, causing a stir in both the scientific and media circles. An interstellar object has just appeared but carries too many unusual signs of distorted orbit, strange changes in reflected light, and an oscillation speed as if affected by some invisible force. Therefore, December 19 is considered the judgment day, when observation data will show whether Atlas is really just a harmless rock or something completely different. Conspiracy theories keep appearing that Atlas can change direction, that it has an unusual structure, that it could be a probe secretly measuring the Earth. Social networks are worried. The media is exaggerating the incident, and public opinion is starting to tremble. And the question is Atlas a real threat? But the truth is that the obsession with Atlas is just deceiving the world. It's new. The data is still vague, and the danger is only speculative. While all eyes are on Atlas, there's a much more dangerous object that's been calculated, tracked for decades, and specifically scheduled to hit Earth in 2029. If Atlas was just a vague warning, the one coming was the real nightmare. A giant asteroid weighing tens of millions of tons could fly closer to Earth than a geostationary satellite. It had a name that couldn't be more terrifying: Apophis, god of chaos. Fear of Atlas was only the beginning. The real fear was getting closer every day. Apophis is not a recently discovered celestial body. It didn't suddenly appear like 3I Atlas. In fact, astronomers have been tracking Apophis since the early 2000s. And from the start, the name they chose for it said it all: Apophis, chaos. The Egyptian god of darkness who swallowed the sun and brought about the end of the world. What makes Apophis truly terrifying isn't its mystery, it's the precise numbers in its model. Its diameter is about 340 meters, large enough to cause a catastrophic continental collision. Its mass is the equivalent of tens of millions of tons, enough to generate an impact energy thousands of times greater than a nuclear bomb. But the most worrying thing is its orbit in 2029. Apophis will pass by Earth at a distance of a little over 0 kilometers, closer than the telecommunication satellites we use every day. Too low, too close, too dangerous. Just a small error in calculation, or the gravitational pull from the moon, from the planets, or even from Earth itself, would be enough to change its trajectory. And scientists have acknowledged this Apophis is likely to enter a gravitational lock, a region of space so narrow it's hard to imagine. If it enters that tiny space, when it approaches Earth in 2029, then when it returns in 2036, its trajectory will point straight at Earth. It's worth noting that in recent years, the media seems to have largely avoided mentioning Apophis. Articles have been toned down, and risk reports have been gradually revised to comforting ones. But for those who follow long-term gravitational models, this silence is more frightening than any warning. No one knows whether the new data will be fully released or whether anything has been overlooked in the simulations of Apophis's trajectory. At the same time, some independent experts began to point out unusual signals in radar observations. Apophis reflected radio waves with a different intensity than initially predicted, as if its structure was not completely homogeneous. No one dared to conclude anything, but conspiracy theorists believe that Apophis might contain an unusually thick metal component or even a special core that allowed it to withstand impacts without shattering. But the scariest thing is not the structure, but the time. 2029 is not far away. Every day that passes, Apophis moves a few 100,000 kilometers, quietly, silently, not as noticeable as Atlas, but carrying a real risk measured by mathematics, astronomy, and Earth's collision history in the past. If 3I Atlas is the question that has intrigued humanity, then Apophis is the real test to see if we are ready to face the universe. And the scary thing is not everyone believes we are prepared enough if 3I Atlas has confused the scientific community with countless mysteries that have not been deciphered. Apophis has sown a very different kind of worry in the hearts of researchers. The worry that comes from numbers that are too clear and too precise. When these two celestial bodies are placed side by side, the level of threat they represent is almost two completely opposite ends. Atlas 3. I is a small interstellar object. Its structure is said to be easy to disintegrate, and most importantly, its orbit does not intersect the path of Earth. Its appearance is controversial, mainly because of data gaps and people's wild imagination. Apophis is different. There is no guesswork, no assumptions. It has years of observational data, a well-defined timetable, and a trajectory that has been simulated thousands of times using gravity models. And all of these simulations point to one conclusion in 2029. Apophis will pass by Earth at a distance of only about 31. 0 kilometers, lower than the geostationary satellite layer where television, internet, and GPS systems operate at an altitude of about 36, 0 kilometers. In other words, Apophis will pass below the layer of human satellites. Given this reality, any comparison between Atlas and Apophis is almost meaningless. An object weighing tens of millions of tons entering space below the satellite not only poses a direct threat to Earth, but also has the potential to cause a chain of collisions that are powerful enough to collapse the entire satellite system. Even a single collision could trigger the Kessler effect, creating a field of debris that could cause humanity to lose communication, location, and the internet in just a few hours. If Atlas can be just a light and fragile mass, Apophis is a meteor about 340 meters in diameter, large enough to cause the devastation of a continental scale geological event. Although much smaller than the asteroid that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, it still has the potential to destroy a large area if it hits the ground, or create a mega tsunami if it hits the ocean. Even more serious is the gravitational lock, a narrow region of space, like an invisible fissure. If Apophis enters this region during its approach in 2029, it will return in 2036 on a near certain collision trajectory. This is no longer a hypothesis, but a real impact scenario. The above information does not come from rumors or emotional speculation, but is the result of simulations confirmed by many prestigious space agencies in the world. The data about Apophis is scary because it is so clear, and that clarity makes scientists choose to stay silent more than speak up. While Atlas is still covered with unknowns, Apophis is a question that humans already know the answer to, but are not ready to face with Atlas. What we have is curiosity, and with Apophis, what we have is a fateful appointment with the universe that no one is allowed to ignore. That is why, when it comes to the real threat lurking on Earth, 3. I, Atlas, is just a gentle warning, while Apophis, the god of chaos, is the dark shadow that is silently approaching day by day, hour by hour. What is puzzling is that the closer we get to 2029, the less information about Apophis becomes. International media mentions it less and less. Risk reports become vague, and official statements are strangely similar, nothing to worry about. It is this unusual silence that fuels conspiracy theories, One theory is that major space agencies are deliberately downplaying the threat of Apophis to avoid economic chaos, as even a negative prediction would send financial markets into a tailspin, capital flight, and the entire space industry into a tailspin. Proponents of this theory believe that deliberate reassurance is a necessary strategy. Another theory involves technology. Are space agencies secretly testing ways to deflect asteroids? Leaked documents have suggested using kinetic impactors, accelerators, or high-energy lasers, to adjust the orbit of asteroids. If the target is Apophis, it would be kept secret. And if the experiment fails, no one would want to be responsible for accidentally making its orbit more dangerous. Meanwhile, some independent analysts have suggested that the radar signals reflected from Apophis have unusual signs. Instead of reflecting evenly like normal stony meteorites, it appears to have a strong asymmetrical reflection, suggesting a denser, heavier structure inside. This has led to bold speculation that Apophis may not be entirely a natural object. It could be an ancient fragment, a super dense metallic core, or even some kind of structure eroded over time. There is also the big unanswered question, why have Apophis's orbit simulations been updated so frequently, but so few details have been released recently? Previously, reports often referred to a gravitational lock 2036, while recent updates only generally state that the risk has decreased significantly. Has the risk really decreased, or has it been softened to avoid causing public panic? What's even more strange is that Atlas's high-profile appearance coincided with the release of the latest data on Apophis, leading some to wonder whether the attention on Atlas was intentionally or unintentionally a blindfold, helping the public focus on a lesser threat, while the real one was quietly approaching. For veteran astronomers, Apophis is not a sensational story, but an existential test of humanity's ability to protect the planet. And what the public doesn't know could be even scarier than what's been made public. The ultimate question still hangs. Like a giant question mark in the sky, is Apophis really as safe as the reassuring reports say? Or is it a danger that the world is choosing to keep quiet about to avoid creating global panic? If there's one thing the scientific community agrees on, it's that no one can predict exactly what will happen when Apophis approaches Earth in 2029. Despite increasingly sophisticated orbital simulations, the universe is still full of unknowns that could throw any calculations off course. And it's those unknowns that have given rise to 3 scenarios that have astronomers around the world worried. The first scenario is considered the safest. Apophis will only pass by Earth. However, a multi-million-ton object entering space below the geostationary satellite belt could still cause gravitational disturbances. A small shift in the orbits of key satellites could disrupt communications, GPS, military navigation, and the entire global digital infrastructure. Many experts call this silent chaos, no impact, but the effects could ripple throughout modern civilization. The second scenario is more directly threatening. Apophis enters gravitational lock, a region of space just a few hundred meters wide that lies in its path. In 2029, if it enters this region, its orbit will be rotated slightly, enough to make its return in 2036 a re-entry into Earth. This is no longer conjecture, but a well-established rule of orbital mechanics that has been known for decades. And that is why scientists, while well aware of the risks, rarely declare Apophis absolutely safe. The third scenario is the most extreme, but never ruled out. Apophis suddenly veers off course. The culprit could be the Yarkovsky effect, a thrusting force caused by uneven heating on the asteroid's surface. If Apophis has an irregular structure or a dense metallic core, as some radar signals suggest, small temperature variations could be enough to shift its trajectory more than predict. A change of just a few thousandths of a degree could push it into the danger zone, making a direct collision a real possibility. Such an impact would unleash the energy equivalent of thousands of megatons, far surpassing any nuclear explosion ever created. If it hit the ocean, Apophis could create a tsunami hundreds of meters high, sweeping away coastal nations. If it hit land, it could destroy an entire continent. And if it hit a populated area, the consequences would be far beyond anything ever depicted in the movies. Whatever the scenario, 2029 will be a milestone that human history will never forget. It'll be a moment that will force us to reconsider our place in the universe and reassess our ability to protect the planet from space threats. What is scarier is that few people realize that this moment is so close. As 2029 approached, something strange began to happen. The more data came in, the more silence grew among the major space agencies. The detailed reports that had once been released yearly disappeared. Simulations were simplified, and official language became incredibly bland, with phrases like no concern and minimal risk. It was a silence that was in stark contrast to how scientific organizations usually respond to a real threat. Meanwhile, the mood at the observatories was different. Where raw data was analyzed down to the millisecond, everyone understood that Apophis was no asteroid to be trifled with. Every tiny change in velocity, light, or radar was closely monitored, because even a millimeter of deviation in orbit could determine the fate of the entire planet. Behind the confident statements about the orbital model, there are many details that have never been made public. Some internal simulations suggest that Apophis may come closer than expected. Some radar signals sometimes return out of the blue, forcing researchers to rerun the model multiple times. Some independent experts have also noted that Apophis responds more strongly to Earth's gravity than originally predicted, meaning the chance of gravitational lock in 2036 may be higher. But that's the kind of information no one wants to release without a clear explanation. The biggest concern comes not from what we know, but from what we don't know. No one is sure of Apophis's internal structure. Is it solid rock or agglomerated rubble? If it's the latter. The Earth's gravity, as it flies by, could deform it, rendering any simulations meaningless. In closed-door meetings, the questions no one wants to answer keep ringing. What happens if the simulations are off by even 1%? If Apophis comes closer than expected, will humanity be able to do anything fast enough before 2036? And will we be able to intervene in time if the worst-case scenario occurs? Of all the horrors, the most terrifying was the silence, a heavy, profound silence, as if everyone was waiting for the same moment when Apophis would pass by Earth. Throughout history, Earth has been hit by giant asteroids many times. But unlike the past, this time humanity knew, calculated, simulated, but still wasn't sure what to do. And in that atmosphere, only one question rang out like an echo of the universe itself. Was 2029 just a fleeting moment, or the moment when civilization had to face its own fate? Space has never been a gentle place. It is silent, cold, and operates according to laws that are indifferent to the existence of any civilization. Earth has been lucky for millions of years, but luck cannot last forever. Apophis. Atlas Tracy and any other object are just reminders that we are floating in a sea of space where anything can happen. Some see Apophis as a threat, others see it as a challenge, and still others see it as a message from the cosmos to humanity: adapt or perish. Earth is not immune to cosmic events. It is just a tiny, fragile speck of dust orbiting an aging star. But amid that fragility, humanity has one advantage. We know ahead. We see Apophis decades before it approaches. We have the technology to monitor, simulate, and even intervene if necessary. But probability is no guarantee if we lack determination, preparation, and honesty. Atlas's story is just a faint echo of an uncertain future. It makes us fear the unknown, but Apophis is the real challenge. A challenge that the universe poses to humanity, not in words, but in the form of a giant rock rushing at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. No one knows what will happen in 2029. Maybe Apophis will pass peacefully, leaving humanity with a lesson and a sigh of relief. Or maybe it will create chaos in satellite orbit, causing global chaos without a collision. Or worse, it could reach a tipping point, making 2036 a dark milestone in human history. Whatever the outcome, Apophis has served its purpose to remind us that Earth is not the center of the universe, to remind us that all the stability we think we have is an illusion, to remind us that one mistake, one thing, one event can change everything forever. Perhaps instead of being afraid, what we should do is look up at the sky with awareness, because every time we look up like that, we realize a simple but profound truth. The universe is larger than human fear, but also more dangerous than our subjectivity. Apophis has not yet struck, but its warning has been sounded, and the final question remaining for humanity is not, will it strike Earth, but how will we prepare if that day does come? If you find this journey of space exploration interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories about mysterious objects, controversial conspiracy theories, and predictions about the future that science has yet to answer. Hit the like button if you want to see more similar content. What do you think of Apophis? Do you believe that 3I Atlas is just a distraction, or is it actually the first sign of something bigger? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for following until the end. See you again in the next journeys, where truth and mystery always go hand in hand in the sky.